Gary's here, so it's 10 o'clock. We call the Sawyer County Administrative Meeting to order. Ask the clerk to call a roll, please.
Ron Kinsley,
Here.
Ron Buckholz,
Present.
Tom Duffy,
Here.
John Righeimer,
Here.
Stacy Hessel. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Number 5, certification and compliance open meeting law.
This meeting was noticed to the media and the public as required by Wisconsin statutes 19.84.
Thank you. Number 6 is the meeting agenda. The agenda is set. Number 7, public comment. Ms. Zilmer.
Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner, resident of the village of Birchwood. And my public comment today kind of ties into the casual conversation that was going on here this morning between meetings. 20-some years ago, when I first started attending county committee and board meetings, the form of government was the county administrative coordinator form of government. The county board chair shared that role with the elected county clerk, who also, the benefit there was he was an attorney. Committees were very hands-on with their department heads. They knew the mandated and the other services that their departments provided, as well as they looked at vouchers and expenditures and were able to ask questions. Their supervisors had a clear understanding, at least within their committees of jurisdiction, of how the county operated. When Hal Helwig announced that he was going to retire from county supervisor service and Chris Mayberry was no longer going to run for county clerk, there was a lot of time that the county board at that time spent on determining how they wanted to go forward. And most of the discussion was about going forward with an administrative coordinator, which under state statutes has less authority than a county administrator. At the very last minute, a switch was made after some presentation by Andy Phillips. It took some county board supervisors by surprise, and Sawyer County ended up with an administrator form of government. So I think the opportunity again presents itself for the county board to at least understand what the difference between the two positions are and maybe decide or justify whether keeping an administrative form of government or county coordinator, administrative coordinator would be better. Very much hoping that whether you stick with administrator form of government, the committees will be more engaged at committee level meetings with both the operations and the financial aspects of their departments that they're responsible for. And when it gets down to responsibility, who is responsible under this form of government? Is it the county administrator that is responsible for departments carrying out their responsibilities? Is it the county committee of jurisdiction? Is it the county board? Because it seems to fall apart. Part of the discussion earlier this morning that was informal before the meeting was the loss of town board members and clerks. We are losing a lot of experienced town board members. It's a difficult job to begin with, but it's only been made more difficult because of the relationship breaking down between the county and towns. And last night at Edgewater, we had a town chairman who was going to just walk out and he doesn't even want to be reelected. And it really came from 9 very respectful people that showed up to talk about the problems with tourist rooming houses, with the sheriff not responding to calls or doing anything, or animal control not responding to complaints about dogs, not about cats, but dogs running at large. And so, again, the process has broken down. It affects town government. It affects the quality of county services. And so please take this opportunity as a reset, whether Andy sticks with us or moves on to greener pastures. Now's a good time to take a look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody online have their hand up. Thank you. Number 8, consider approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, which was on January 9th. Motion by Mr. Duffy, second by Mr. Buckles to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 9, county board appointments, discussion, possible action. Communicated with Dale Magnuson from Winter. It'd be replacing, John Sorowski. And he told me he only wanted 2 committees. So with him taking 2 committees, if I may, he would take land and water and he would take zoning. He did not want to be on public safety. And prior, Jim Evans asked me if he could be on public safety, and I told him he had to wait until we got another person to fill that role. I did neglect to tell Dale Magnuson about the LCO Transit, Sawyer County LCO Transit. So I'll have to talk to him about that.
I'll make a motion to approve. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve Dale Magnuson as the District 15 representative for the county board.
I'll second that, but could you give his bio?
Yes.
I'm sure you guys know him, but the rest of us don't.
I've known Dale Magnuson all my life. He did carpenter work. He owns Magnuson Brothers Construction. He owns the Winter Motel in Winter up on the hill. It's called Winter Lights or something similar to that. He's been on the Winter Co-op board for many years. And I think at one time he's even on the school board. Well-known family of the community. You're welcome. See, we voted, so we're done. We didn't vote. Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. His brother is Neil Magnuson that helped start, yeah, that's his brother. Yep. They all kind of work together. Yes. Yep. Good question. Yeah, that was for all the appointments, I believe, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you for pointing that out. So also we have some other appointments here. We have Mr. Jim Evans for Public Safety and LCO Library. So we'll need to have a motion for that.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Rickheimer, a second by Ms. Hessel to approve Jim Evans for Public Safety and LCO Board. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for pointing that out. Anything else with it? Okay. Number 10, 2025 to 2030 County Library Plan, discussion and possible action. Mr. Alvarado.
So this initially was in the Economic Development UW Extension Committee. We belong to the Northern Waters Library Service, which is considered what they call the division within the state library system. To be a part of that, we have to have a county library plan. For us to be a part of it, as well as the libraries in the county to participate in the regional service, we have to have a library plan that needs to be updated every 5 years and reviewed annually. Not exactly sure how it was done historically. It looks like the library directors and maybe the board members got together and updated the plan. Because there was some turnover with the director at Sherman Weiss Library, I think the library directors just kind of put together the plan this year. But looking into it more, we really need to have a county library planning committee that, works with the directors, puts together the plan, holds a public hearing. They make any changes to it, hold a public hearing, and then approve it and send it to the board for filing or accepting it. So we don't have a designated library planning committee. So the resolution that's been approved by the Economic Development and Extension Committee establishes a library planning committee. The duties are outlined in statute. I put together the resolution and proposed to make things, I think, simple, that the library planning committee is made up of the individuals we already appoint to serve on those libraries. So we appoint one person to the LCO Library Board, the Sherman Weiss Library Board, the Winter Library Board, and then 2 people to the Northern Waters Library Service. So it'd be those individuals, along with the directors of the libraries that would make up the library planning committee. And this would just become a standing committee that we would handle their appointments every 2 years when the board is elected. And then advisors to the committee would be the county administrator and the director of the Northern Waters Library Service. I talked to some other counties about how they organize their planning committee, and this was fairly common size of committee and participants on it. The only thing I didn't anticipate when I put the resolution together for the committee, and then I put together the appointment list, is that we have Ron, who's appointed to the library service as well as the Winter Library Board. I don't know if that would always be the case, but I didn't have a contingency in there if there is duplication. So I put it on this agenda though, since it is establishing a new standing committee. I thought the administration committee should also consider it.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Duffy, second by Mr. Righeimer to approve what we have laying in front of us. Any discussion? Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the we'll vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 11, Veterans Honor Park, discussion with possible action. Looking for updates?
I don't have any.
Stacy?
No significant updates, just that we're still in the land search process. And Mr. Elliott at the County Veterans Office has agreed to assist me with reaching out to more veterans. I did reach out to the Veterans Association for Hayward and some of the gentlemen from the Legion and VFW. So we're just compiling thoughts and opinions from them at this point, and we will move it forward in a more slow fashion than I initially anticipated.
And we have a survey going out also?
That's what he's.
Welcome.
Thank you. As far as the survey goes, I started it twice. I started it twice and I've been interrupted. I've had a busy week.
Okay.
I will get to it. Hopefully I'll have it out by next week or have it coordinated and be able to send it out. But yeah, I did. I tried twice and
Try again, my friend.
yep.
Okay. Well, that takes care of 11. We'll move right into 12. And Mr. Elliott.
Okay, for the Veteran Service Office, the month of January, we had 366 phone calls, 648 letters, emails, and faxes, and 150 office visits. I put the 2024 January in for reference of, basically how busy we are. The one thing I was out 2 weeks in January, so this was, for the most part, a good portion of it was Nicole, and there's only so much water a funnel will take before it overflows. So she did a good job, but we're still catching up from that. And then last Friday, we had training down in Barron that we attended for the day, so that also put us back. Not to make excuses, but that's just reality. VA disability compensation and pension exams. We had 16 disability claims to date and received retroactive payment of $13,444.09 to start the year out. Anyway, and you can see again, January we had 21 and how much we had in retro payments. La Crosse Vet Center, we co-managed and hosted 5 individual and 2 group counseling sessions. We also had, I didn't put down here, we did have a couple sessions, mental health sessions for the federal VA as they wait for their registered nurse to be able to assist them at the clinic for this. It's a self-imposed, basically a self-imposed rule or that they're trying to do in Minneapolis. And it's a fight basically between the primary care physicians and the mental health physicians. The mental health physicians believe they need a registered RN to be there to give the veteran a pill if they need a pill, and then watch them for 30 minutes to make sure there's no negative effects and to make sure they're not going to do anything, to themselves if it's required. But with all that being said, they can come to our office and and I don't administer any pills, but I do have 911. So it's just, it's crazy. It's crazy. Federal hiring and this stuff just drives me nuts. Okay, outreach, coffee and conversation with Gary and Nicole, first Wednesday of every month. And then for social media on Facebook, we have 11 new page followers for 165 total. And we reach an average of 825, I guess, contact with an average of 825 contact interactions and 130 visits. Our training remains up to date and we are pedaling. Let's see, Valentine's cards, I got them out yesterday, delivered. I've got one delivery left to do today, and that's at the clinic. They were closed yesterday. So we had county employees take the time to write on a card or write a Valentine's to the veterans. We have children in the school districts, the local school districts that put cards together, and I just kind of made sure everybody had a little of everything and delivered them. So anyway, I got some smiles. So, and that's good.
How did we get them delivered, may I ask?
Pardon me?
How did we get them delivered, may I ask?
I went to the nursing homes and assisted living and the veteran center. So I had a few cards for the veteran center. So seems to be a lot of veterans that will go through there, go figure. So, and that's how I did it. And then, like I said, I'm going to stop at the clinic. I'm on the way back to the office and drop the last of the cards off. So any questions?
If the DVA goes from 16 regional reps to 11, as they had prior to COVID, how will that affect you? Will it give you more of a workload, or will it just,
Are you talking VORP,
Yeah.
Veteran Outreach and Recovery?
correct?
I don't think it's going to, because when they started, my wife was actually the VORP for this area.
Okay,
And she had, I think 11 counties up here that she tended to. And Paul Huber took her place and he's been doing a good job. I don't see it negatively affecting our office at all, to tell you the truth.
okay,
Yeah, I don't see it. I like having that option because they pretty much specialize in basically homelessness and veterans. So they've got their contacts and it works very smooth versus every once in a while somebody walking in being claiming homelessness. Maybe they just transitioned across the state line and showed up here thinking that, manna from heaven was going to give them, clothing and a roof and food. But so it's rarely does it happen. So, but between all the counties, I think he's fully employed.
Mhm.
I don't think he's overemployed
okay.
at this point.
The Veteran Center does have a program too, if you do find veterans that need work done on their home or are homeless, they do help. So you're aware of that
Yep.
program?
Yes, I am. Matter of fact, I had a young lady of 90 years old and her husband, I think, was 92 down in Birchwood on the Washburn County side. Had a friend that said, call Gary. But I reach out, I utilize the organizations. In this case, I went to the Springbrook VFW and they're very active and stuff. And I talked to the commander and well, I got the permission too from the people, but they needed a ramp, to get in and out of their house. Her husband finally got to that point where they needed it. And so I called the VFW in Springbrook and they, I think, matter of fact, I had somebody in yesterday asking about that again. But so they, if there was a federal benefit, I would have helped them get it, to get to ramp. But in this case, it was not a service connected thing. It was more of what can I leverage from the nonprofits. And in this case, it was the VFW. So, but yep, I'm well aware of it. I use everything I can possibly get my hands on. So, any questions?
Just one comment. I took time to go to the coffee that they have, and I was very impressed with what they did there. I believe if I count correctly, there was 12 people there, and I was extremely impressed how well it ran. Thank you for that.
Yep, thank you. Thank you.
Number 13, Information Technology Department report. Mr. Colson.
Good morning. I submitted a report that you can see. I don't think anything requires additional elaboration unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Mike? Thank you for all you do, Mike, and thank you for the key.
Thank you.
Moving forward, number 14, Human Resource Report.
Rose is actually doing interviews this morning with HHS, so she could not be here. Her report's in the packet. Nothing really to elaborate on there.
Any questions for Andy?
How about female jailers, we're still okay?
I don't know if this is not real good, but we are fully staffed throughout the sheriff's department, up and down jail, dispatch, and now deputies.
Number 15, County Clerk Department report. Ms. Klein.
Good morning. So this is just the regular written report that Lynn had started doing. Counter traffic, basically daily people in our office, the plat books are selling. We have these nice maps. There are 4 left. They're $50. They're large laminated maps of all the county plats. If anyone's interested in those, they're for sale in our office. We have 2 elections coming up, the February primary and the spring election, and after that, it's quiet for the rest of the year. Lynn was tracking how much we're billing the towns, and I don't have those bills yet because that's a function of dividing out the ballot costs from Command Central and the newspaper ads and some of the other work. What I do want to talk about is we have an MOU that we execute with the towns. It's March 31st is the renewal date. They do auto renew for 6-month periods if we don't sign new contracts. We've gone from having a lot of clerks that were really doing a great job providing their own elections to a lot of turnover, and now we have 13 reliers, and we're looking at probably 15, 16, 17 after April. That's too much work for the county clerk's office because basically we have to get into WisVote and enter all the data for all of their elections. Plus, that's in addition to setting up everything, getting their ballots in there and everything. So I would like to go back to the original idea before that MOU, which was a temporary helping role where we would do it for them until they were competent. And there's easy training available. They should be doing it. It's their statutory requirement. There are counties who don't offer that service. There are counties that have a 3 strikes and you're out policy. If people don't cooperate, we've had some clerks refusing to pay for the charges when Lynn charged them for extra work they caused us. So that's something that I'm having to follow through to try to collect that now. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think this committee may be willing to think about this. And we were having that conversation earlier about the towns. The building block of the towns is the elections, and the town clerk's job is to know how to do those elections. And I'd like to see that improved. So rather than training them with that where we take it over for them, I would like to give them the ability to do it themselves. So maybe the training should focus on helping them get into WisVote and doing that. They might need IT support. There's got to be a way we can make this transition because we can't keep taking them. If we keep going, we're going to have 21 towns. Then the county is doing all those elections, like that step work of entering the data and everything. So I think they need to do that. It's empowering for them. So that's the only thing I wanted to say there, and that's a future discussion maybe. Stacy had asked about Next Request and the ability to track record requests by department. This is the generic report that Next Request pulls when I make it, when I enter the request. It doesn't track it by department, but I see on here, it says it can, right here, and then it's blank. So I'm gonna have to look at that. That's just the report, the way it's programmed. Again, I would say 95 to 99% of requests are the sheriff's department. We've only had a few that TRH, Matt McKay's been handling. Some of those are for zoning and Matt McKay. The clerk's department's had a couple, but usually they're police reports. So if you want to discuss a way to track it by department like you were doing before, that might be where I have to work with Mike or IT, but I'm willing to do that. Do you have any questions?
I do, Liz. Those towns that are not paying you for doing elections, do you do them anyway? I would say do your own then.
Yeah, but then-
Before you answer that, I want to just say one more thing. I agree with you that these should go back to the town clerks doing their own. I hope my clerk ain't watching this because I'll get a butt chewing, but I think that they should be doing their own elections as before. Like, these ones that are already, like you say, not paying, I guess, why would we do them? Or why would you do them, or you, Lynn, but
Yeah, there's a provision in the MOU that they agree to pay, and then we're into an issue of enforcement or having to have a dialogue about that. Before we even worry about that, I'm more concerned about the lack of knowledge that's happening. When we do too much for them, they don't know the answers. They're not calling WEC directly with their questions, they call here. They're not training their poll workers. So one of the problems I'm seeing right now is town boards appoint the poll workers every 2 years. And that's a whole process in the statutes that no one really looks into. Some of these clerks have no poll workers. I've had questions that someone needed a chief for February. That's in a few days. And the chief has to be from your town by statute. So you have to get that person trained. So in Draper, we had 2 people that canceled at the last minute, experienced chiefs, and Chris just had to train a chief yesterday. He found someone and he got her trained and she's going to run the election. But that's how much you have to apply yourself to that. So that's the clerk doing that. But the clerks are part-time. They only work a couple hours a week, a couple days a week, or they're not in the office. How are they going to do that kind of stuff? So we have a problem where they aren't working long enough hours to do all of this training and in addition to their other jobs. So I don't know if it's a question of the electors and the town boards not understanding the amount of hours it takes to do the town clerk job. And that needs to be revisited. Something has to be fixed, but where I see it breaking down is the elections.
Yes.
Do we have any idea of how this looks in other counties? I guess, how does it look in other counties in the Northland? How does it look in rural counties in general? Is this unique for us, or is this something you could perceive as possibly a statewide issue?
Statewide in the sense that Wisconsin has an unusual number of towns and we have a home rule mentality. So the elections take place at the municipal level. Statutorily, they're set up that way. There's a separation of powers with the county. So I don't know how that compares to other states. In Wisconsin, the county clerks have all different ways of handling it. If you're a big municipal, or if you're like Milwaukee or Madison, they've got dozens of deputies and people working, boots on the ground. Up here, we have technology problems, socioeconomic issues. I mean, not everyone has the internet. Then not everyone knows how to use a computer. I think it's a rural issue.
Yeah, my sense is it is a rural issue, and again, even if you offered the training, if they're working 2 hours a week and do whatever, I mean, how effective is it? I think we've talked about this before here. This is I don't know if I call it major, but I mean, if the towns aren't taking it serious and votes are mishandled, and my understanding is Wisconsin is unique in that how they do it with the home rule, whatever you want to call it, whatever that's called. So I don't know, short term, how do you address it? Long term, is this tweaking legislation again? And I hate always going back to that, but it just seems like we got these rules here that are being forced from the state, and there's things that are breaking down, and nobody beyond us seems to care.
Thank you for your comments.
So what's the short term?
Guess offer the training like Liz said, and hopefully they take it.
So I'm able to do trainings here, and Lynn in the past and Carol did get pizzas and invite people. The training, the statutory setup for that is we're supposed to train the town clerks, not the poll workers. And what I don't like that I've seen happening here is 47 or 48 people are in this room, poll workers. The county clerk doesn't train poll workers, the municipal clerk does. And the reason why that's important is they need to know enough about elections to be able to train poll workers. So they can't just send their poll workers up here, then they weren't even coming, some of them. And so I don't want to be training poll workers, I want to train clerks. And I want to train clerks to be good at doing election processes. I want to train them how to use WisVote. I've been doing it already. I have one that took over for Lenroot, he's been in my office. He sat down with me and watched me enter his town in WisVote. I showed him how to do everything. Right now, I'm providing for him because he's not set up. They have to become certified in elections. They have to take a test. They have to be, it's a couple hours. And then they're allowed to become a provider. So WEC has the standards for that. So until he's able to do that, which he should be good by April, I'm doing it for him. But part of that condition was come and watch me do it. I want you to see how easy it is. It's pretty easy. It's easier than what we're doing now. Right now, they're sending me spreadsheets with their updates daily and their mistakes. They write stuff into the wrong cell, they issue a ballot for the wrong person, and I'm having to undo that and unscramble that and figure out, and Lynn was beside herself last November because of how many mistakes and how burdensome that process is. If they can type it in a spreadsheet, they can type it in WisVote. WisVote's based on a spreadsheet. They can just go in and type it, then you see your voters, you know who they are, you know if someone passed away or moved. It's supposed to be done in the towns at that level. I can't know 18,000 voters, but the town clerks should know their own voters.
What are you recommending we do?
I guess I'd like someone to look at the MOU, Andy or legal or somebody, and take a look at what kind of contractual relationship we set up. And is that even legal? And should we continue doing that, or should we refocus on the training to get them in to do what they need to do? I guess and I need to talk to other county clerks. I'm brand new. I'm going to a seminar in a couple weeks. Maybe I'll get some information how other clerks do it.
Can we put that on the agenda for next month then? Have a report back by then?
So my question, according to the MOU, like if they don't, we could require the training, and if they don't do the training, then the MOU is void because they're not following the rules. So I like your idea of looking at the MOU. I've never seen that MOU and just making sure that, because I find it interesting that the towns want to be separate from the county until they need our help. So I would really like it to be where we're all working together and making sure the towns and the counties are working together and they don't have that conflict. So I think relationship building, and this is a part of it, and making sure that they're doing the required due diligence. So it's not us, but that we're having that relationship with them. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, and one other thing to take back to towns is the citizens are paying that clerk to do that. And then they're paying me to do it. So that's not fair to the electors. The town clerk has to do that. That's their duty. And then they're pawning it off on the county to do it, and we're billing them for it. So their town electors are paying the county to do a service that the clerk is supposed to have to do. So there's that.
So Liz, when you send that out for that training, I would just put on there that for municipal clerks only, not for the voter, not the voters. Yes, poll workers. And then, and see how that goes. And then I was gonna say one other thing, but I forgot.
I have a question. You said some towns have not paid yet?
There's one person who refused to pay a $50 charge that Lynn charged her for a lot of extra work that we had to do on her behalf. And she wrote back an email and refused to pay. And so right now it's not paid. And Lynn said, well, Liz is going to bill you again for that. And so now it's on my plate.
Town chair. The clerk is dismissing it. Go with the town chair.
We could, yeah. I mean, I haven't taken that step. I don't want to give the impression that I'm not supporting the clerks. I think it's more, it's better support to support them to be self-sufficient. I want to train them and teach them how to do it themselves. I don't want to do it for them and then leave towns in a position where they're not covering their own elections the right way.
Yeah. So I would just send that out then, I guess, to the town board chair
Okay.
and say that that's not being addressed by the clerk and see where that goes for you.
Please report that back to us next month. too,
Okay.
please. Anybody else have anything? Everything else, Liz? It's letter B, next request report. What's that?
Yeah, I talked about it already a little bit. This is just the breakdown of next request for January. So this is their generic report that you can just click, pull a report, and it pulls it. And what I said was, it doesn't break it down by department. It just shows. So these are mostly all the sheriff's department.
I didn't realize that was the same.
Yeah, same thing.
Thank you. Number 16, resolution, request legislation to change the Lake District statute. Mr. Alvarado.
Passed out a hard copy. So this statute, the Lake District, but it's more about just trying to get it up here. So in talking with at least a couple board members, not so much specific to Callahan Lake, they expressed some frustration with the way the state statute reads, or maybe better said, the parameters of what the statute allows the approving body to do. So I think we all know the process of, just try to get it there. Want to blow that up, put the maximize there. All right. So I put it on for administration since this is more about talking to the legislature. I've talked to Mr. Rickheimer about this, Mr. Kinsley. So I put together a resolution that talks more so about changes to the statute that we maybe would want to see. This isn't going to really impact the consideration of the Callahan Lake request or petition because timing wise, nothing's going to happen in the short term. But what the resolution does is it kind of outlines the process that's established by statute for the formation of a lake district. That lake districts, I think the legislation was started in 1974. It's all described in chapter 33. Lake districts get legal standing with the ability to tax and eligibility for cost sharing of funds. The process has them submitting a petition to the town or county. And I'm just describing the petition process. A village or city can also create a lake district for something within their boundaries. But otherwise, it's a petition to the town or county where the petitioners have to show the boundaries and the necessity. They have to describe what the necessity is, that it's the public health, comfort, convenience, welfare will be promoted by the establishment of the district. And then once the county gets it or the town gets it, we have to have a public hearing, compile a report to submit to the full legislative body, and then take action within 6 months. Once it's approved, or I mean, if it's denied, it's denied, but once it's approved, we appoint the first board of commissioners. The district eventually has an annual meeting where they elect their own commissioners, and then they're on their own. Like they have the ability to govern themselves. There is still statute for how they operate, but for the most part, you have created a new municipality within your county boundaries. And that has the ability to, some rule setting as well as taxing authority. There's no really any more local oversight at that point. And so while it's beneficial and it allows them to take on projects and levy for expenses, it can continue on in perpetuity. So doesn't allow the county any discretion to put limits on how long the district can exist. Doesn't allow maybe the ability to reauthorize the district after a certain point in time, or the ability to monitor the district and determine if the original intent is being met, or to verify that they are meeting the necessity requirements for public health, comfort, convenience, et cetera. And frankly, that might have been the intent all along in statute, was to allow these to be created and then they can operate independently of other bodies. But I think given the number of taxing jurisdictions, and I'm pulling in comments from boards, like just there's some uncomfortableness with creating another taxing entity in perpetuity. And so if there was some discretion allowed in the statute, maybe there'd be more comfort with creating these districts, that they just don't operate forever. So what it's asking for, the board, the Sawyer County Board of Supervisors has requested the legislature to amend Chapter 33 of the statutes to allow town and county boards the ability to add conditions to their approval of lake districts that would address the length of time a district can exist, the ability to reauthorize a district, and monitor the work and performance of the district. It's kind of a position statement to send to the legislature saying, nice statute, but really we'd like to see some more ability to put some controls in place when we authorize these districts.
So that would, they would be able to, after what I'm reading here, the people that do not want to be in that, they have the chance to opt out then later.
Well, this is, I just want you to separate the Lake Callahan.
Oh, okay,
This
and
is
then
about-
just go with this.
This is just lake districts in general.
Oh, okay.
This
all
is
right.
just asking the legislature to change the statute.
Okay, all right.
It has,
Got it.
I mean, it's the result of the board going through this process and getting to learn about lake districts and some of the comments we received
Okay.
from the board about, and I'm reading between the lines and taking comments, but there's some reluctance, I think, from some board members to approve this particular district because there is no ability to say, once the dam is replaced, the district should go away. And that's what I think some people want. You guys can debate whether you're agreeable with that or if you want to send something to the legislature. Because, we send this on, this is just going to get filed for the time being. I've said, the legislature's not going to take this up tomorrow. They got a budget to get done. It could be years before we'd see any actual legislative change.
Very good.
Well, it's like make a motion to approve the resolution.
Yeah, I'll say it.
This is something-
My discussion was just, are you seeing this in other counties? Like, is this idea of lake districts taking off any other place than what we're currently sitting?
What I've been able to find out is it's really not taking off. There's just kind of always a couple that are created every year.
Mostly in the southern part of the
Yeah.
state. So do you see it having a trend in the northern part of the state?
I've not been able to find there was one in Burnett County within the last couple of years, one in Dunn County. I'm not seeing any acceleration in the northern, I'm not aware of that.
Mhm.
I think, I talked to the Burnett County people about theirs. Theirs was a really unique one where there was 4 property owners on the lake that wanted to do this. So the county went ahead and allowed them to authorize the lake district. The other ones are usually either weed control projects or dredging projects or dam projects. But yeah, I'm not seeing I'm not aware of any acceleration locally we're seeing we've had none and now we know there's one proposed and another lake is in the planning stages.
Mhm.
So we have a motion by Mr. Regan, second by Mr. Duffy. Go ahead, Mr. Regan.
I just wanted to just kind of reiterate some things. I think the resolution hits it. I was one that was concerned about it, and I think it's because it's circumstantial. This is the long-term, to me, this is a long-term answer. I wish we had it for the Callahan. We won't have it in time for that, but I think it's a good idea, so why not try to start that process to push it with the legislature? Nobody's saying that lake districts are a bad idea. They're circumstantial again. So if the statute is changed, it doesn't mean lake districts are going away. It just gives us, in this case, like, if we could have it for the Callahan, but we don't, I can personally see the need for a dam. That's needed. But I think, creating more government, more tax authority is a big responsibility because it can go on forever. And being that there was such a, 51%, I mean, it wasn't like it was overwhelming 100% of the people wanted to do it. So if this was in place, it'd be nice because it gives you a third alternative to address it. Yes, it makes sense. No, it doesn't. The third alternative is yes, it does, but maybe just for the dam. And then it ends after that and you work that out. So I think it's I don't see why the legislators would not approve this. It's just a time-consuming thing. And hopefully we can get this ball rolling. And so the next time a lake district comes, we have this as a tool in our toolbox to address their need.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any other more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 17, County Administrator's Report. Mr. Alvarado.
If I just, before I launch into that, just to Mr. Buchholz's question about opting out and just to address the Callahan Mud Lake District. So it'll be back on the board agenda for next month. It was tabled because of we know we had good participation from county board members attending that webinar. At this point, nobody's asked, officially for us to come back to the board with any changes, staff to, work on anything in particular. So it'll be back on the agenda. Just a reminder, you have to make a decision within 6 months. So that would be at the April meeting. So
So we're
The
good.
senator in the school or ask is people should be able to opt out.
Say it again, please.
On water, should they be able to opt out? I think that's the biggest concern that I've heard from people.
yeah, and just to clarify, they can't opt out. They could ask to be removed, and then it's up to the county board to remove parcels.
What will that be? So is this going to vote next Thursday?
You'll have the ability to vote on it on Thursday.
And as far as the opting out goes, if we desire to take initiative on that, should that be done prior to Thursday or done at Thursday's meeting, and then push it to the next month?
Either one. I mean, I would say if you want to discuss it next Thursday and somebody makes a motion, just hypothetically, that we want to remove all parcels not on the water, then I would suggest we send that to the staff to take the map and take the list and remove those parcels.
And it'd be okay to do that Thursday to
Yeah,
ask?
I think
Okay.
it's fine to do
All right.
that. Then we would come back with a new list of parcels that are still included and a map that would show the new boundaries.
Or we could finish it too, be done
Yeah, if you.
with that. I mean, but we do that first.
All right, Administrator's Report. First thing I want to talk about is county strategic planning. So been kind of kicking this around probably for a year. We really could use some type of guidance document that we can use as committees or as a board when we make decisions, as well as for myself and finance when we put together the budget. Really, I mean, we try to listen to the board and what's happening in the public as we put together those things, but we don't have an official strategic plan. So just in looking into how to get that accomplished, I mean, you can go through a year-long process to put together a strategic plan that's 100 pages long. I don't myself see much use in those types of plans. So I did talk to a couple other counties. Barron County seems to have a really simple process that they revisit every year. They do a 5-year plan that produces what some people would call them goals. They call theirs directional statements. They have a half dozen of them, and then every year they assess how they're meeting those, and they add projects, work plan underneath those. And it turns out that Auriga, our UW Extension agent, worked with them to put together their original strategic plan. Part of it was done at they actually had initiated it just before COVID started, so they had to kind of work through some of that. So I talked to Auriga about facilitating a strategic planning process for the county board here. Of course, she's more than willing to do that. In the packet, there was an attachment in the agenda that has kind of the primer, as she calls it, the guidance document. We'll be looking at probably 3 meetings. The goal was the timing. Why we're talking about it now is we want to have it done as we get into the budget process for next year. So we have these things done, so they're kind of set, and we can put a work plan together underneath it. The timing wise, we plan to have her come to next week's board meeting and then explain the process and have the board and ask questions and essentially approve that process. And then we'd start in March with probably a 1 to 2 hour meeting that would be separate from a board meeting to work on a SWOT analysis. And that would be done with the board and department heads. That's the only time there'd be any staff or somebody else other than the board working on it. And then after that, once you do the SWOT analysis, there would be some email or, not a meeting setting, but compiling the data and then having a priority process for the board to identify issues that are critical. And then a third meeting, probably around May, to have the board finalize the plan or whether we want to call them critical issues, directional statements, goals, whatever you want to settle on as verbiage, but come up with 5 to 10 priorities that guide what the work that everybody here at the county does that meet our mission statement. You have a mission statement already. That's, I should say that's kind of the first thing you normally do is review your mission statement or establish one. We do not have a vision statement. You can decide if you want to do a vision statement, but that mission and vision kind of sets the tone. This is what our priorities are. This is how we approach. And then you look at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and then come up with your critical issues and kind of your guidance, your principles that you move ahead for the next 5 years. And then every year you revisit those as a board to see if we're putting enough effort into meeting them or if we want to make any adjustments. And then underneath that is the actual work plan of this is what we're doing this year to meet this goal. And it is, and I should say it gets a little. One of the reasons I don't like the big strategic plans, especially with the county, is we already have mandated things that we have to do, whether we like it or not. So you can't avoid those. But sometimes your guidance principles are things like, we want to invest in our facilities. Okay, how are we doing that this year? It might be about bottom line stuff about managing our levy expenses. Last meeting we heard about some bumps in the road with human services in the youth justice area. How are we focusing on those to avoid out of county costs? It can be things in the community. It can be some counties really focusing on housing or not so much the unemployment rate anymore, but just economic stabilization in the county. So I don't want to. If you want, you can Google Barron County's plan and go look at it. I didn't want to just give it to you because I don't want anybody just to say, those are, I don't want to bias your mind with what others are doing, but here today just to kind of say this is what we'd like to go ahead and start working on. Be at the county board next week, see if anybody has any questions, but I doubt that anybody's going to disagree that we would not benefit from having a strategic plan.
Yes.
So the things that you're talking about, mandates, is that an onboarding that you talk to the new board members, especially if they weren't elected, like Jim and now Mr. Magnuson? Is there an onboarding process that you can give them so they know what we have to do versus what we want to do?
Really isn't. We kind of leave that up to the committees, not the committees, the departments at the committee level to talk about the things they're doing. I've worked on, I have a document that's like all the mandates the county has to do. I've never actually found one that any other county has. The one I have is not complete because it just doesn't seem like you can ever roll in all the things that you have to do. But definitely would be good to have something better for board members to understand the things that we're required to do. But-
I just think it's a good process, and I think you're a good person to lead the way in that. Don't look at other counties, because you got this. Especially don't look at Chippewa County.
I think it's a great idea. I think Stacy makes a good point, and I would assume, if not, it should, in that strategic planning process, is to do a quick review of what is mandated and what isn't, because otherwise you're just, it's a fantasy thing, right? You need to understand, what do we have influence over and what don't we, And I would assume that would come through the strategic planning process, which could then act as an onboarding thing or just a review down the road.
Good.
So if you don't have any questions, you'll just see Auriga next Thursday, and she'll give about 15 minutes, she says, of kind of the primer of how the process will work and the role of the board. And
Be a good way to start.
Don't forget it's Berkey Thursday, and so it's going to be busy. So if we don't have to be here for hours, that would be great.
it should be less busy when it's dark out. Nope, it's next Thursday.
Let's check with Mr. Duffy. I'll bet he knows.
Down at ski on Thursday night, so you're gonna have to park back here because there's not gonna be any parking.
So you better get your skis ready, Mr. Griffin. You got till next week.
FYI, the beer tent will be right across here. They got approval from the city to put a beer tent across here, so.
Is the other door gonna be open to come in? The front door?
Probably not, because there's no parking. The street road would be closed off.
That's right.
They'll have the snow on it.
So. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Well, I will lead off with that then for just the administrator's report is next week is Berkey. We know it's going to come up Main Street. So I'll be sending out something today to the staff just to remind them of that. And we usually do give staff a little bit of flexibility next week because it does, especially Thursday, Friday, it gets a little chaotic. And on top of that, there's a jury trial on Thursday.
Oh,
So we asked them, what were you thinking? And then somebody wasn't. But we had a discussion yesterday with with Marshall, the police chief, and sheriff. So we are going to ask staff on Thursday morning because there's going to be a jury selection. So there'll be a lot of parking needs, and we don't have Main Street will be closed, 4th Street will be closed about midway. So everything's going to have to come from over here. So we're going to ask staff to plan their day accordingly, but at least try not to use the Kansas Street lot and Kansas immediately in the morning. As jurors are dismissed, the parking will open up. So we are going to have to just ask for some cooperation.
The Loon lot is also closed, right across behind the bank. That's
Okay.
also closed, so that parking will be really limited.
Yeah. And we know the church's lots are all used a lot during that time period as well. So
we'll park a deal
it's going to be a little bit of fend. At this point, we're just saying fend for yourself, adjust your day.
You missed it.
I did. I feel left out. I believe it's criminal. Yeah. They thought it was going to get settled. It did not. So we're making all the contingency plans for having a jury trial on Thursday, week from today.
It'll all work out in the end. I
Well,
hope.
otherwise, just some updates. Personnel, we are fully staffed in the sheriff's department. So much so that we have always had part-time positions available for events and having some flex, deputies that can also fill in jail and dispatch. So they are moving ahead with a couple potential recruits. So we can have a little bit of a reserve force. It's been a long time since we've had the opportunity to do that, but they want to make sure that if we have interested parties that we are getting them trained so that if into the part-time positions so they can fill in as needed. That's a good thing. Rose, I said, was at interviews. So we have a couple LTE positions that have been created for the year in HHS. They're grant funded. So they are doing a great job in HHS of getting grants. And those positions go directly to what we were with the human services budget issues in the youth justice area. of trying to, do some of the things we've done in the adult area with diversion and pretrial work so that we can head off some of the youth that are getting placed into out-of-county facilities, have a little bit better, work in the truancy area as well as the diversion area for youth. So that's not going to have immediate impact, but it's probably been a neglected area that some investment at that stage in their lives will hopefully avoid more costly placements for the county in the long term. We are still recruiting for the real property lister and a mental health therapist in human services. Nothing really new with the ambulance, just that we are working on, we've got some better data now for response times for last year and following through on the request. I'm trying to arrange a time to talk with Sand Lake, but we know there are some questions out there, just trying to get as much information pulled together as we can to address those concerns. Our 3 paramedics that became licensed at the end of last year are all completing their FTO period, so they'll be running as independent paramedics yet this month. So we should be filling out more of our crews and having 3 ambulances up and running most of the day. CJCC, I mentioned a little bit before the meeting. I just want to point out that our MOU with LCO has expired. So there were some emails last night between the TGB and the legal counsel there to start working on getting the new MOU in place. Part of our MOU requirements, the new requirements we put in the MOU last year at the request of LCO was to return to having the Native American within our jail reports to identify race. So we have been doing that. If you look at the jail reports in public safety, it does identify the Native American population that are incarcerated, as well as others, and also to have Justice Point make reports to the TGB, which they've been attempting to do. They'll go report to TGB whenever they want. It's supposed to be at least quarterly, so they're trying to arrange the schedule so they have time to appear out there. Public Safety Radio Network is coming back to the board. Essentially, it's the same proposal that the board saw in October to move ahead with GenCom and establish either lease sites or our own radio or tower sites. We did put together a proposal with GenCom for the WOJB tower that was sent to them over the weekend. So we're hoping that that'll move ahead here a little bit quicker than it has. And then GenCom is looking at all the available tower sites that are already in existence or anticipated to be built in the next year so that we can see where we have opportunities to lease. If there are no good alternatives, then we'll end up having to build some of our own towers. But if we can find lease opportunities at reasonable cost, that'll be the quickest way to get the new network in place. Covered Callahan and Mud Lakes. County ambassador on the lobbying front, just so you know, I did go last month with other county ambassadors for the WCA. The issues we're talking to the legislature about for the budget cycle are fully funding crisis and mental health, court funding. We send, I think it's statewide, counties retain about 20 million in fees or fines, and we send 100 million to the state, and the state spends 141 million on court, so most of their costs are recovered, and then we spend 2/3. We essentially are subsidizing the state court system, so we'd like to retain more of those funds to offset county expenses. Same thing in land conservation. The county land conservationist, they usually normally fund 2 positions in the county. At one point, they were funding 70% of those costs, and since in the last decade, it's less than half now that we're getting reimbursed from the state. So our costs have gone up, but their funding is essentially flat. And then, of course, general transportation aids and LRIP program, asking the legislature to keep those, put more funding into those programs so counties can catch up on deferred road maintenance and rebuild costs. Both times I did meet with Representative Green and Senator Quinn, both of them brought up the Lake District. So they are hearing it down there, and I filled them in as best I could as the process here and just Lake Districts in general. I think that's about it on the report. The only thing I wanted to bring up was in regard to board policies. It did not make it on the agenda, but there's, talking with the chair, there's probably a couple of things we want to look at into amending the board policy manual. So the things I know of there really is nothing in there about county board members attending conferences and the parameters, but where they attend and if they, the responsibility if they cancel and the cost and how that's allocated. And then also written comments. We have the parameters for when public comment is offered at a board meeting, but nothing in regards to written comments. So it's the idea, if you send written comments, you want read at the meeting, well, if the written comment takes 5 minutes to read versus the 3 minutes we allow people to speak, how do we handle that? So those are the two major issues I'm aware of that have been brought up. If there are anything else that we want to take a look at in the board policies, I'll have it on the agenda for next month.
Is Justice Point financed by federal or state?
Well, it's state money. We pay our match, and then we get a state grant through the TAD. I don't believe it's federal money coming to the state, though. And that specific issue of federal money, that's all been, the freeze came unfrozen. But we do anticipate there's going to be maybe some isolated, slowdowns of money coming from the federal things that are federally funded. It doesn't affect us a ton, but it could. Like the senior meals, that's federal money at some point. Where else? Human services, some of those dollars are federal dollars that come to the state. We don't get a lot of federal FEMA funding, comes from the federal government to the state, to us. So I've just asked department heads, if they hear anything from their state agencies or funding sources that either funding is not coming through or is being discontinued, to let us know. I mean, we're getting good information right now from WCA and the National Association of Counties, but we're just, it's murky. There's a lot of uncertainty there.
And a question on the MOU with the LCO, is that all encompassing or is that just specific to certain items within, like you mentioned, the jail report? Is it that just for the jail report? Or
It's the MOU is with the Criminal Justice Collaborating Council.
okay,
So 5 years approximately, maybe a little bit more, they created a joint CJCC. Every county every county has to have a CJCC. I think that's a requirement. They decided to make it joint with LCO, and in exchange for that, LCO contributes part of the matching funds that we put towards criminal justice programming and matching the state grants. They appoint a handful of people to the council. But then in this last round, they asked for those, they want to have Justice Point report to them or give them a report. They wanted to have the Native American race identified within the jail report. It had been.
because that was a controversy before, like what was, I can't remember, like we had it on there and took it off or vice versa.
It's the sheriff. The jail report is under the purview of the sheriff. He removed it because we felt, and him and I had discussed it. I didn't know why it was on there. He wasn't sure why it was on.
Why do they want it on there? What are they saying they want it on there for?
Their concern, I think, is I think it's fair to say, they've said it, that they have a concern with the disproportionate number of Native Americans in the jail versus others.
And do they does it affect their federal funding whatsoever, as far as
No.
that? Okay, there's nothing there, okay.
And then the discussion yesterday actually was that came up as an issue, and they'd like to have Justice Point to come talk to them. My point I made, and this has come up before, is that if they're unhappy with Justice Point or they have concerns, they really need to bring it to CJCC, because the county is actually the one that contracts with Justice Point. And if there's a performance issue, we should be the ones to address it. But I would also say Justice Point can only work with the people that are incarcerated. They don't have any control of how people get into jail.
Right.
They work with people to divert them from going into the jail or a pretrial supervision or treatment court that once they're in there. So if there's a discussion to be had about who's being incarcerated, it really should happen at CJCC, not, not with Justice Point, but
And this probably isn't the forum for it, but just to ask, so like going back to what we're mandated to do and what we're, mandated, not mandated things. Like that's an example. So like, are we I guess the LCO's payment for housing criminals is their grant ability. They get the grants to help fund. I mean, in other words, if they had their own jail on the LCO, we would not, because I've seen stuff where like 80-90% of the jail is native. And so in essence, we are running their security,
well,
system.
I want to be careful about that because you're right about to hire.
Yeah.
Numbers say that the data says that the Native American race is higher incarceration in our jail. Nobody pays to use our jail, but we are the jail for our sheriff's department, Hayward Police Department, Town of Hayward, and the LCO Police Department. So all of those entities arrest people and put them in our jail.
Right. So I mean, they're,
So
so unlike what you'll see, like they're not sovereign in that they have our law enforcement is still their law enforcement.
Yep.
Okay.
I just want not, it's not just LCO Police Department, it's putting Native Americans.
Well, I understand.
And I'll be honest, when this issue has come up in the past, I've pulled the jail reports. You can see, like, they put them online, so you can all go look at this to see who's putting inmates in our jail, like which agencies arrested people and put them in there. And if you look at the ratio, the Sheriff's Department, Hayward PD, LCO PD are all, pretty equivalent in how many people they put in the jail. And if you look at the breakdown by race, they're all the same proportion regardless of who's the arresting agency. So,
Well, LCO has no criminal jurisdiction, put anybody in jail. They don't have-
LCO police does.
They have civil jurisdiction. You enter. They can go on, I'll come this way.
Hmm.
So, you stuck with, that problem.
just to expand on that too, like I think the whole point of having the joint, not the whole point, the CJCC was refocused on 5 or 6 years ago because we did have a high inmate population here. And then that's when the county went into the justice programs of funding a diversion program to help alleviate some pressure on the jail and the number of people awaiting trial. And then it expanded to going into, a pretrial, so that people, maybe not everybody needed to be in jail while they were awaiting trial. So that's where you started, was pretrial and then diversion. And then you have the treatment court. And I think a lot of those things have helped. If you look at 2 years ago, 3 years ago, your jail population was averaging almost 100. Now it's in the mid 50s. So I think some of those things have worked.
Bracelet. That's his point.
They do. And bracelets, we usually have less than 5. Usually it's 1 or 2 people on bracelets. But I mean, you have people now that are, they assess them to determine what their risk is with them, to whether they need to sit in jail while they're awaiting trial or if they can be out awaiting.
They get them on counseling programs,
Mhm.
get them out.
Yep.
That's right.
So rather than investing in running a jail, and then you save some costs, but you're investing in all those other programs. And in the hopes too that there's not recidivism, that people aren't return customers, that they're getting help and treatment and counseling.
But that's kind of my point, though. Whatever the investment is, where's the funding come from or mandated to do? And it sounds like the LCO does not provide funds other than the grant writing for our law enforcement that they use.
Right.
Thank you.
I think I'm done unless there's anything else.
Next year we can avoid the problem. Problem every year.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know why there's a jury trial. Like,
Do you need for the county board meeting? That
Yeah,
have a
county board
different
meeting,
date?
yeah.
Maybe they could move the Berkey to a different day.
It's gotta become like an, like where Louisville during the Kentucky Derby or
We
something.
used to have a team.
Yeah. I fell down and never got up. Number 18, County Board Appointment Committee update. Anybody have anything else they want to share? Correspondence, conferences, future agenda items. We have a few items that we want on future agenda. And certainly, again, like anytime, if there's something you want on the agenda, please let Mr. Alvarado or I know, or Liz, and we'll certainly try to get on the agenda for you. Yes.
Just on the order of agendas, I'm gonna be sending out another email for the end of the week with Liz being new and maybe some, I don't know. We've lost our way a little bit with agenda preparation, with some of the departments being a little slow to get things in. I have a mirror, I'm one of them sometimes. I put together kind of a document that shows each committee to help Liz, like all the things that should be on every committee agenda, like public safety kind of has some standard things and finance. And then also on there is the timeline that we want to have, where we want departments to have at least their agenda items in within 8 days before the meeting, so Liz can put together the agenda and then send a draft out to the committee chairs. So you have a day to look at it, approve it, so she can get it posted 7 days before the meeting. There's always going to be, I think, special items we have to add or reports that come in late, but at least we want to have a little bit better process and a tighter timeline. So I'm sending that out though to the department heads and the county board to look it over, see any things you want to make changes on your agendas or what should always be on there. And so everybody understands the timelines we're trying to achieve. Anything else? Okay.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you for your time.